everybody, to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Thompson of the Punch Drunk Critics. That is John Nolan to my left. And the guy below us, who you might remember his face, that is Scott Menzel of We Live Entertainment. What's up, Scott?
Not much, Travis. Happy to be back.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you back in your wall of toys, which I'm always jealous of. Looks better than mine. Welcome. Scott is also the founder of the Hollywood Film Critics Association. And yeah, it's good to have a man of influence here in the room for once, John. You know,
I know, right? I feel always more important when you're here, Scott.
you know, two guys like us.
You
Man.
guys are too much. Way too much.
So this week's show, we're going to be talking about. And there was a shit ton of movies that came out this week, man. I was busy as hell. We're going to talk about just a few of them this week, though. We got Scott here, so I really want to get his opinion on Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Which I think is out in select theaters this week only, and then it goes on Netflix next week. We're also going to talk Profile, which is the latest screen life film from Timur Bekmambetov. I got the name right.
How did you nail that? Damn.
Woo, yeah.
I'm not even going to try to say it.
And we're also going to talk about some other stuff, too. I can't remember. The Woman in the Window. We're talking about The Woman in the Window a little bit later on. And I know something else, too. Oh, Spiral.
There's a reason you forgot to include that, probably.
So after that, we'll also get into some stuff with Dave Bautista, some things he's been saying, and some other stuff as well. But we really want to start with Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. It's funny, when Zack Snyder gets interviewed a lot, and he has been getting interviewed a lot for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He can't go through an interview without people like pulling him off the side, like sidetracking him to talk about Justice League and Warner Brothers and all that kind of stuff. And my thing is, if you want to know, all you need to know about his relationship with Warner Brothers is that he took Army of the Dead to Netflix. That's all
Yeah.
you need to know. Like, you don't need to know anything else. Like, it's like when Ben Affleck took his last film outside of Warner Brothers too. You're like, well, I mean, that's all I need to know about their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you take a movie to another studio. And this is Zack Snyder's return to the zombie genre since Dawn of the Dead, which a lot of people still think is his best movie that he ever did. I think Army of the Dead, well, it's maybe not up to par with that. I think it'll make a lot of people just want him to make zombie movies for a while, which he might do, honestly. This one stars Dave Bautista in a big ensemble. It's set in a Las Vegas that has been overrun by a zombie outbreak, and Bautista's crew is hired to bust into a casino and pull off a major heist. Scott, since we got you here, I want to get your thoughts on this one. A lot of people have been looking forward to this. What did you think?
Well, I was one of those people.
Yeah.
I think the last time we were on this show, right? The last time I was on this show,
Yeah.
we all talked about being Zack Snyder fans and, how that was not a blessing and a curse in some ways, right? Because he's so divisive within our realm here in Hollywood. People either love him or hate him. Very few fall in the middle. I think he has a very distinct style to his movies, and that's why his work is so divisive. The slow-mo and the camera flares and all that good stuff, he uses a ton of it. My overall thoughts on this movie, I thought it was a lot of fun. The beginning and the end are phenomenal.
Great opening sequence.
Yeah, the opening sequence is just amazing, and the ending's really strong. I think in the middle, there's a little bit too much meat there. It's a little flabby there, and it runs too long. And I think there's some of the characters needed to be developed a little bit better than others. And I don't know. Overall, I had a really good time with it. I think Netflix is going to have a big win with this. I think this is going to be a big movie for them.
Yeah. John, what did you think of Army of the Dead? Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I had to go traveling because if you're in the D.C. area, you can't see it in theaters right now. It doesn't hit Netflix till this weekend, but there are 5 or 6 theaters in the area. The Angelica, for one, Bowtie Cinemas has it as well.
Is it playing at the Angelica?
Mm-hmm. In Fairfax. Yep, it's playing there. Yeah, I went to Bowtie, but I was gonna go there.
Oh, okay. Angelica's not in Fairfax. It's in Falls Church. You're thinking of the Fairfax Cinemark in Fairfax.
I mean, it's said Angelica when I was looking up the show times. I
I'm
could be
going
wrong.
to the Cinemark in Fairfax to see it tonight.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
see it again. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But go
I
ahead.
mean, the thing I loved most about this movie is, you don't realize how when you have a formulaic type movie, a zombie movie is always going to be somewhat formulaic, but when you have a little change that affects a major part of the story, how different it makes it. So, I don't know about you guys. I've never seen a zombie movie in which the whole world wasn't taken over. And I thought that was one of the cooler things is that it's walled off in Vegas. Because my first question, obviously, when I heard about the plot of this movie is, what the hell good is money after a zombie apocalypse? Why are you going to steal money? There's nowhere to spend it. But that makes a lot more sense when you find out that Vegas is a walled off city that they're going in to heist. Just a really cool idea. I mean, right on line with the running zombies change that Snyder made in Dawn of the Dead. Dave Bautista is he's. I mean, if we didn't know already, he's an action star. He's capable of leading. He doesn't have quite the charisma The Rock does, but he's got more heart. I guess is what the word I would put on it. I do agree it was slow at parts, but the fast paced nature of the rest of it really kept up for that. It did feel like they weren't sure. Like as far as I heard, this was always going to be a movie, but and maybe this is just today's movie environment waiting in on me, but it almost felt like it could have been broken into a 7-part series for a limited series for Netflix or something like that. When you talk about the lack of depth in some characters, it definitely felt there were some people with stories that didn't get told, and then there was stuff that would be generally filler in episodes 4 or 5. You know what I mean? But it was awesome.
It makes me wonder if some of the lack of characterizations because they basically got two separate things coming up that's going to flesh out the backstories for just about everybody. They got a
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
prequel, and then they got a live action prequel with Ludwig Dieter, who I think is the breakout character of the movie. A lot of fun as the safecracker.
Dieter? Oh, Dieter was the scene stealer. I mean, him and what's what was the other guy who was with him, who was paired with him all the time?
Amari Hardwick.
Oh my God, he was so good.
They were so
Those
much.
two, I could see a whole movie like them. It's almost like the Hobbs and Shaw of this world.
Yeah.
I would love to see a movie with the two of them.
Right.
I hope in this. I mean, I guess they can't really team them up in this movie. It's going to be since it's a prequel, but I wish they could do something down the line, and perhaps they will. I mean, I think Netflix is going to try to build a franchise out of this for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear in the coming weeks Zack Snyder's coming back for Army of the Dead 2. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I had a lot of fun with this. The opening sequence is amazing, set to Viva Las Vegas, zombie showgirls and undead Elvis, all that kind of stuff is a lot of fun to me. I'm curious though what you guys think about what it is about Zack Snyder and zombies that he seems to get it with them the way he might not with some other stuff. I don't know what it is about zombies. I've been trying to figure it out in my head.
I think he gets plain action. That's why he was so good with 300. I mean, there's not a ton of character depth needed there. With a zombie movie, you can go in deep with a show like it's bad to say now, but The Walking Dead or something like that. But you can have a really good zombie movie with just zombie fights.
A zombie meeting would be interesting.
Yeah, you can have a zombie meeting as well. They're not too good, with presentations. PowerPoint is lacking, but no. I think he's really good at dumb action, and I don't mean that in to belittle him or anything. That's one of my favorite things to see in a movie. But he's so good visually, and he's so good with the action scenes that a zombie movie is almost like bread and butter for him. That's all it is action and cool shots. So.
Yeah, which I think is why the runtime on this movie is what bugged me about it, because when you open up with that killer opening sequence, which is violence and blood and great soundtrack and just stylistic, it's like an explosion of style.
Yeah.
And then you go into the movie and they set it up and you're kind of like, okay, this is good, and then you just have scenes that I felt were they just could have been tighter. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand that Netflix has this problem with every filmmaker now that they bring on, where they don't want to tell them to make this a little bit tighter, but sometimes filmmakers do need to be reeled in a little bit, because I think if this movie was a tight 2 hours, I might have been one of the best zombie movies of all time.
Yeah,
It really might have been.
If this was at Warner Brothers, they would have cut 30 minutes off of it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Totally would have.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't that seem a little bit more inexcusable nowadays when you do it? Like, 15 years ago, if you had an idea, you didn't have the option to make it a TV show. Usually, I mean, very few actually went to TV. But now you have and it's not even 24 episode seasons. You have limited series. You have recurrent, all this stuff. Like, it's almost less excusable now to have something that's not cut tight if you're choosing to go with a movie on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I also agree that it's interesting. I think Warner Brothers, when it comes to Snyder, they just didn't believe in Snyder's vision. I think that's what I got out of the whole Justice League fiasco, is that they meddled with Batman v Superman. They put out the other cut on Blu-ray. People responded much better to that one. Yeah. Then they had this Justice League, which obviously we all know everyone responded better to it as well. I think that's the problem. I don't know it's so much of editing movies or just not believing in the filmmakers who you hire, because it seems to be the same case with David Ayer for the Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. That seems to be the exact same thing that we're hearing now, is that they just didn't believe in his vision. We actually heard them say the same thing about Kathy Yan with Birds of Prey. So Warner Brothers just has a bad habit of interfering with filmmakers. And they need to believe in the people they hire and let them follow their vision. But at the same time, filmmakers need to be open to realizing that if you're going in a cutting room floor and they see like a scene's like 20 minutes long and they say, you can cut this, you can cut this, you can't be upset. You can put out the director's cut later if you want it to be all there. But in terms of making a film like pop and move along, you kind of need a good editor and someone in a studio to say, you know what, we need to shave a little bit off this.
Yeah, I don't know if Snyder was the right guy to make your Kevin Feige of a universe. I feel like if you're going to do a Zack Snyder series of superhero movies, they almost kind of need to be off on their own, like a Christopher Nolan's was. Because it's so different than what any other filmmaker is probably going to do with these characters. I think that's. I put almost all of the blame on Warner Brothers for this stuff.
Or you can give him the team up movie, and as long as he's got to follow somebody else's vision, I can't really think of an example to prove that he can do that. Some filmmakers cannot adapt to other people's visions, but if you had somebody else being the Feige, and then you have him being the early Marvel Joss Whedon that just does the team up movies, I think that would work really well. But
he's just one of those guys. I just don't know any other filmmaker that would mix well with him. And Ayer might have worked well with him just fine, because I think overall their styles are very similar, at least in terms of like their tone is very similar. Like as soon as you hired David Ayer, you knew what kind of movie you were getting. Like, I mean, there's no doubt what kind of movie he was about to make. They should have known that. I mean, right from the start, unless they hadn't watched any of the movies he'd made over the last 20 years. If that would fall on them, not on him. So I don't know. I fault Warner Bros. For all this stuff, but in terms of Army of the Dead, I think he's got a hit on his hands. I always when I talk about Dave Bautista's performance in this, I really enjoyed it. I thought he was really great. I think it shows his physicality, but I think it also shows a little bit the sensitive side, which he showed in like a little bit in My Spy. The only other real leading man role he had was in a movie called Bushwick, which I always talk about because I really loved it when a lot of other people didn't. It was a really great lead performance for him. And this role was very similar to that one, kind of protective in nature. So I really liked it. I think this one is very similar to that one. But yeah, I definitely think this one's going to continue on. And I can't wait to see it again in a theater. I hope I do get to go tonight and see it.
I wonder how you're going to react to that. So I wanted to share something. This is the first time I got to talk about this. So my friend who I do Trending in Hollywood with saw it in the movie theater for the first time. And he was saying that you can tell it was a Netflix movie when you watch it on the big screen. So I'm very curious to see how you feel about that when you watch it on the big screen.
Yeah, that is something that I hadn't even really considered. That some movies are made because they know they're going to be on Netflix, and this was put in theaters after the fact. We know that. It was only in the last week or two that they actually made the decision to kind of expand it into theaters. So
Now, what are we talking? Are we talking about like the quality of the effects? So when you see him
Like
really
the
big,
visual
or
effects, like the tiger, like looks
oh
different
yeah, yeah,
on a TV versus how it's going to look on like a 180 inch
right,
screen and stuff
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
or an IMAX or an XD screen.
mm-hmm.
And then just some of the stuff that looks blurry even on the television.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious to see how that's going to look when blown up.
Yeah, now that you mention it, there were some, because Snyder's known for his very crisp shooting, right? I mean, even his even going back to something like 300 Dawn of the Dead, as soon as he goes to slow mo, it's super sharp. There's blur is not a thing. But now that you mention it, the more and more I think about it, there were some issues like that. As soon as you said the tiger, it clicked, and I can agree that it does seem like a Netflix movie if that's the case. Yeah.
It reminded me of 300, which it completely slipped my mind that it was a Zack Snyder movie until you just mentioned it again.
Yeah.
And now I kind of want to go watch 300.
It's still good. I actually put it on one night last week. I had nothing else to watch, and I put it on. I still don't think I've ever seen the second one, 300. What is it, Rise of the Empire? I don't think I ever saw it. And I love Eva Green. Yeah, I love Eva Green. So
how did you not watch that with Eva Green in there?
that's surprising. I know what I'm doing tonight. Let's put it that way.
I'll give you a clue. Compared to the first one, it's not that great. Who directed that? I think it was Noah Murrow, which I don't know if he's ever directed anything else since then. But anyway, all right. So Army of the Dead. I think we all pretty much recommend that one.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Because we got Scott here. I want to get Scott's thoughts on Profile.
Okay.
Which I think this one came out a couple of years ago actually in festivals and I think overseas as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's only just coming out here now. It's another in the screen life genre of movies, which is like Searching and Unfriended, all those movies that are mainly done over computer screens and tablets and things like that. And this one is interesting. I think this might actually be the best of all of them. And I like Searching quite a bit. I don't think Unfriended is very good, but I think Searching is very good. And I think this one might actually be better. It's based on for one thing, it's based on a true story, which is an interesting way to bring the screen life technology to a new level. And it's about a journalist, a woman, British journalist, who uses a fake Facebook account to connect with an ISIS recruiter. And she connects with him, and he gets to work really quickly actually, trying to recruit her. And he's a very, very charismatic guy. I can't remember the actor, but he's very charismatic, and she is a willing participant. And along the way, while she's going through this, some of her opinions begin to change, and you start to wonder whether or not she's really still being manipulated, or she's going along with this for real. I was hooked by this movie, and I did not think I would be. I think it's a movie that's more effective watching it at home. Like I was literally watching it on my computer. Like I didn't put it on my computer, on my TV screen. I watched it on my computer, and I think it was more effective that way too. It really kind of brought you in, like you're actually watching this thing happen on your screen, and I was just engrossed by this and the way that it shows how easily people can be manipulated, but it also just shows how effective these relationships are that we form over screens. And it got me thinking about the fact that all the friends I've made gaming, like on video games, people I've never seen in my life, and how somehow I feel a connection to them. And it shows you, it's like, man, it really is easy to form these bonds with people that we've never seen before, never met in our lives.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really effective that way. John, did you get a chance to do this too?
I didn't, so I'll let you guys cover it mostly. But I will say, it did come out in 2018. I remember that, and it being re-released now, it's perfect timing to come back out, or well, I guess to come out originally, because maybe a couple months earlier, but it's framed with an ISIS recruit, right? But all I can think of when I look at the rundowns for this is how everything happened with Trump last year, and that was almost all online, and you see how the ridiculous levels that people go to and all this stuff. But I honestly don't know if it gels in with a movie like that, because I haven't seen it. So all you guys.
No, yes, it does. It actually does. Scott, what did you think? 'Cause you wanted to talk about this one too.
Oh yeah, no, I love this movie. I'm with you, Travis. I was dreading watching it. I'm gonna be honest, like, because I was kind of like, oh, it was supposed to come out in 2018. It probably sucks. Like, I'm not even gonna, like, I'm just gonna half pay attention to this. And I put it on, and within like 20 minutes, I was like so like engaged and like just glued. And I could not believe how, I mean, scary some of this stuff is. Um, and I think the movie itself, like you said, Travis, as well. I was also huge on Searching. I think Searching is phenomenal. This movie is actually one step up above it because it's limited. It's even more limited than Searching, and it's really just two people communicating the entire movie. Yes, you have like one or two other characters that pop in from here and there, but the two of them building a relationship through a computer screen and watching them sort of have these different types of opinions on one another, and then it starts changing and they find connections.
Mm-hmm.
And it just showcases how easy it is on the internet to convince someone to believe you're someone else.
Yeah. Yep.
And as a journalist, we all relate to this a little bit more, right? Because we're sort of like, oh, maybe this person isn't that bad. You even said, I'm sure you said that during you watching this. You're kind of like, oh, I kind of feel bad for this guy too. Look, look at him. He has a family. He lost his family. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of get the rug gets pulled out of you, and you're just kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? And it just builds tension. And I love that, unlike Searching, where it's moved from like a video camera to the screen. This one stayed 100% on the computer screen, and seeing her reaction, Valine Kane, it was refreshing. It was just like she was so natural in this performance.
Yeah, definitely. No, she absolutely was. She was great. I liked watching her like slowly kind of evolve her character, like from because at first I was like, this seems like a really stupid idea.
Yep.
And and she has that boss who's kind of like, kind of, but then it's like, oh, but this is such a great story, because this movie also talks about journalism and what journalists will do for a story, what they'll risk, and what, media outlets will put others at risk for just to get a story like this. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. It makes me, and this one was directed by Timur Bekmambetov, who's really kind of is the I guess the grandfather of this whole genre. People know him from movies like Wanted and Night Watch and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. But he's really found something with this genre that I think when we first started seeing it, we were like, oh, this is just some stupid gimmick. It's just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And none of it's not gonna last. Like there'll be one or two of these movies. Oh, open windows. Oh, hey, and stuff like that, and then they'll go away. But I think this movie shows they're not gonna go away. They're gonna change. They're gonna evolve like every genre does. And they're gonna be movies that are they're just as timely as this one, and they're gonna have an impact. And they're gonna use social media and show different ways that it affects our lives. This is a new way of presenting that. Yeah, you could say it's just an extreme form of catfishing, but it's more than that. It's more than that. So I think like you were saying, Scott, that a lot of people just look at this and are kind of like, whatever. I think that's a lot of the reasons why it doesn't have a ton of reviews. A lot of people just kind of skipped over it.
Yeah.
Exactly the same way we probably went into it thinking, is this going to be nothing? And I think people are going to regret that. They're going to come back and find this movie, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's great to see a movie like this because it showcases what I always think film can stand for, and that is less is more. This is a very limited film, from the casting to the resources that they use. It's basically like watching an hour and 45-minute movie on your computer, watching someone like we're doing right now. Just go click on a YouTube video, click on an article, read a little bit of the article, watch a little bit of video. But it showcases how engaging that can be. And for so many of us in the world who spend so much of our time online and engaging with others and sharing video links and trailers and whatever, it's just an extension of ourselves, and I think we can learn lessons from movies like this because it showcases how we seek connection through others online without really knowing these people.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen this so much. I talked about this a couple of days ago, but we reveal so much of our personal selves on Facebook, on Twitter, where we like, oh, I have a mental health issue. Oh, my family member died, and we
Mhm.
don't know who's seeing this and how it could be used against us some way down the road.
Right.
So I think this movie, in a nutshell, just kind of serves as a warning sign to be like, hey, be careful what you're putting out there because you don't know who can see it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I in my other life I work in cybersecurity, and that's one of the funniest things. The biggest source of information for hackers is those Facebook. What kind of pineapple am I tests?
I
Because
was
people go through and then they'll put what the street they grew up on. Every
That's
security
exactly
question.
what I was just about to say. I
Yep.
was just having this conversation with a friend like a couple days ago because she had answered one of those things like, "Name the street that you grew up on,"
Hmm.
and she answered it, and I was like, "It's like, what's the security question that you're going to get when you open your next bank account? It's going to
Yeah.
be like, what's the street?"
It's always like, what's your action hero name or what's your porn star name? The name of your first dog and the name of the street. And you don't. People are generally trusting, so we don't look at it that way. Plus, I don't think our brains have evolved enough at this point to realize that even though you're in the comfort of your own home, you're actually in the global community when you're on the internet. Even though that seems obvious, but the other thing that puts this movie more timely now than 2018, I think, is we have evolved a lot over the last 2 years to spend more time looking at things in front of our computer screens, our laptops, especially since the pandemic hit, with stream services like Twitch and also there's more of a comfort
TikTok?
with watching that type. Yeah, it's more of a comfort with watching that type of media, and it shouldn't, on paper it shouldn't work because it's so novelty really, but it does. So I'm looking forward to seeing this now.
No, you about to say something, Scott?
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think back to the early days of TikTok, right before Donald Trump got involved and everything, where they literally said that they were leaking information to people, and yet people kept signing up for the account. It's like, what is going on with people? I just don't understand.
Facebook is still going strong, and they had that whole Concord, what was it, Concord Analytics thing.
People don't think about this stuff. They only consider it like when it comes to like getting a vaccine, and they literally think the government's going to put something in their arm to track them. That's what they think. That's what they think it means.
By the way, your phone will do that too.
They think in the most obtuse possible terms. Like, okay, yeah, they're going to literally inject something into my arm, but then you're like, you carry a phone around that people can track you on all day. You're online. People can track you from your Facebook and your Instagram all day.
Yeah.
If you post something, most of them put your coordinates where the hell you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they track all the time. It's insane. But yeah, Profile, definitely a movie I recommend. Scott recommends. John, you should check it out as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a movie that'll make you think, man. It really will.
Sure.
I don't like doing that anymore.
I know, I don't like doing that, but it makes me want to see what the next evolution of Screamlight is. It really does, and I didn't really give it that much consideration until searching. Curious to see what the sequel to that's going to look like too. But yeah, and it didn't feel. I think another thing that worked for me about this, it didn't feel like they had to fabricate reasons for them to be online and do the things they were doing, which is one of the things you kind of had to do with searching a little bit. Like, you're a dad. Why don't you get your ass out there and do something? Just sit there on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Other people do it. It didn't make any sense. It didn't feel natural. But there was no reason to do that here. You didn't need to fabricate anything. It all felt right. Everything they were doing together on the screen. So, yeah. Hope people go and check out Profile. I think it was the highest rated movie of the week for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me too.
Yeah.
Now, is it streaming as well, or is it just theaters right now?
21 days from now.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So yeah, and Scott, I think that was all we had with you that we were going to talk about this week. But we're definitely going to have you on again soon, man. Scott Menzel, We Live Entertainment, Hollywood Film Critics Association. You got anything coming up you want to plug or talk about, my friend?
No, I just want everyone to, if you watch this show, which I love, by the way, and I'm happy to be on it, I'll come back as many times as you want me to.
You do.
I just want to tell everyone just to watch, the content going out on HCA. I mean, I'm very proud of all our members who have been producing great content. We have 4 shows that go live at 11 a.m. on the Hollywood Critics Association YouTube channel. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Check them out at 11 a.m. And that's it for me.
I like the pop culture one you have, the one that's mostly about
Pop Council?
Yeah.
Well, Travis, you may be doing that very soon if you want
to. I look forward to that invite.
All right, buddy. Well, John, always a pleasure as well.
Thank you for coming on.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, my friend.
Yeah, man. We'll see you soon.
I'm actually taking a trip out there to the West Coast to the LA pretty soon. So I may have to hit you up, man.
Yep, absolutely. Let's do lunch.
All right, man.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take it easy, Scott.
Bye.
All right, that was Scott Menzel. We live
Yes, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy, man. He's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I only had a chance to hang out with him a couple times on my trips out there. Really nice, and and I'm a new member of the Hollywood Film Critics Association.
Congratulations. Not the Hollywood Foreign Press, though, right? Because we're not fans of theirs anymore.
No, although they probably should. They probably should bring me in.
Yeah, I guess that would. Yeah, well, if they start bringing in Americans for the Hollywood Foreign Press just to hit that diversity number, that's going to look even worse on them probably. Because didn't they try to hit it, but they did some shady stuff to do so.
They said they were going to do it, and they I don't think they I just don't think they did enough. I don't think they did enough to make people happy, and for good reason. And yeah, they're going through some stuff right now. No Golden Globes next year, folks.
Yeah. So I was trying to remember this the other day. The EGOT.
Apparently, but it won't be on NBC, so I don't know what they're going to do to air it. I was like, hey, Critics' Choice, you guys should be calling NBC right now to get on there, but I think they got to do it.
Oh, I'm an idiot. I was worried when I first heard this because I was like, well, what about all those people? The biggest thing you can get as an entertainer is the EGOT. You got your Emmy, your Oscar, your Tony, and the G, for some reason, I was thinking was Globe, but it's obviously Grammy. So EGOTs are safe. EGOTs are safe, everybody. We're good.
Yeah. And it's still taking place as far as we know. It's just not going to be aired on NBC. It'll probably come back the next year, assuming the Hollywood Foreign Press gets off their ass.
Yeah. This will be one of those things that, it'll be like the old Hollywood rehabilitation thing where they'll disappear for a year and then they'll come back and all will be forgotten probably.
Or so we think. But yeah, what I was thinking when I posted about it, I was like, the timing on this is fortuitous for NBC because ratings for award shows are in the toilet.
Oh, yeah.
All award shows. Oscars had an all-time low this year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily know if they're going to bounce back. Any of them. So they might be using this as an opportunity to get out of any commitments they have with the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
So, because I would guarantee you almost anything, any show that they would put on the air would probably do as good, if not better.
Right.
Who knows? But I feel like so.
Well, Travis, do you want to play a game?
Let's do it.
Let's play a game. I knew there was a big problem with Spiral. I was actually really hopeful because I was like, Chris Rock must have something good if he's coming in because it's just out of off brand for him, really. Like you go from being Adam Sandler's buddy in all these movies to, a homicide detective in a Saw movie. But as soon as I was watching that opening scene, and I know I mentioned this already today, but like the voice is iconic, right? It's just something. If you're even going to do homage to it. You don't change it up that much. And like everything's so creepy and that opening scene is vicious. If the whole movie was like that, it'd be amazing. But then the thing comes out like, you want to play a game? I'm like, the hell? What the hell's that? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. So Spiral, from the Book of Saw, 9th movie in the franchise, I believe. Opened to $8 million this week, which ain't great. Even for the pandemic, it's kind of low. But it's like the 6th movie in the franchise to open at number 1, so they got that. Chris Rock, Samuel L. Jackson, Max Menzel, basically the 3 main characters in this movie. So this already has more star power than any of the other ones we've ever had.
Right.
Based on a story by Chris Rock, so Chris Rock came up with this. He plays the lead detective in it. I was amazed at how many people acted like it was some new thing for Saw to focus on like dirty cops and shit. I was like, every Saw movie has like bad cops in it.
It was it was all you wasted your life, and now you're gonna have to pay. You know, if you want to keep living, you're gonna have to do the worst thing you can imagine because you've been a dick. That's what Saul's always been.
Right. So basically, it's the same thing. The plot of this is no different than most of the other ones. It's
Mm-hmm.
except this one appears to be a jigsaw copycat who is targeting the corrupt cops of a specific police force.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Rock plays the son of a legendary police captain played by Samuel L. Jackson, and he's investigating this series of crimes that are basically killing off all the cops in his department. I was amazed at people that thought this was some sort of novel storyline for Saw. It's not. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It was really generic for a Saw movie. I didn't find any of the traps, with the exception of the first one, to be particularly elaborate.
Yeah.
The whole moral conundrum that these, or ironic fate that these people go through.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one guy, like one person lies on the witness stand, so it's his tongue. He has to sacrifice his tongue or his life, basically.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I didn't think that any of these were particularly creative in terms of the kills. And if you have a Saw movie without creative contraptions to kill people, what the hell is it?
Well, yeah, and
it's a police detective procedural.
yeah.
It felt like to me, it felt like a procedural. It felt like I was watching an episode of Criminal Minds, and that's what it felt like to me. And I was not into it. In fact, I was bored for a lot of it.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. I mean, it's that the first trap was good. I mean, and sadly, or I guess fortunately for everybody out there, is you can watch the opening scene on YouTube right now, or on punchdrunkcritics.com, I should say, and it's perfect Saw. I mean, and the whole trap, spoiler alert, is set up to hold the guy's tongue. Actually, it's playing above us right now. Is to hold the guy's tongue, and he has to jump off and rip out his own tongue before the train comes, and that's Saw. But I think the reason probably people thought this was such a novel idea is pretty simple. It's that people don't remember what the other Saw movies were about, because it's all about the traps, like you said. And if you don't put the time and effort into the traps, what's the point? Now, the real feeling I got through this was that they were telling the production company and the actors and everybody's like, all right, we're going to sit down and watch these movies so you know what we're going to do, and then we're going to write the story, and that's going to be it. And they went to the video store or to Netflix or whatever, and instead of getting Saw, they accidentally opened 7. And then they tried to do both and didn't do either, and ended up somewhere in the middle.
There's very little connection to the other Saw movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually a fan of the Saw movies. Anybody who's read my reviews of the Saw movies, which I did most of them for the site.
Mm-hmm.
Normally for most horrors, I passed them off to somebody else. I just did almost all of them for Saw. I actually like that franchise, and the reason why I liked it is because whatever the quality of each movie, and it varied as you would expect any franchise that has 8 movies in it.
Right.
The quality varied, but they were always sticklers for continuity. Right?
Yeah.
They're always able. They took the first movie, the James Wan, Lee Wan-el, for the first movie, and which I don't think they were ever meant to do a whole bunch more after that.
Mm-hmm.
But they took that and they kept expanding and building on it, and they did a really good job of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting threads between characters over multiple movies. I thought they did a really fascinating job the way they did that.
Yeah.
So I always respected the franchise, even if it wasn't always great. This one is basically, it has the most tenuous connections to Saw. It doesn't feel like it was written like a Saw movie. You remember that movie that I think it was supposed to be a Saw movie, but they turned it into something else, and it was like Death something.
Not Death Note.
It was about a guy who broke into a house or something, and he found all these contraptions and.
Oh.
You remember what that?
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it. Must have been really good if neither one of us can remember it.
It was actually okay.
Mm-hmm.
At least one of them was. I think they made 2 of them. I think one of them was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was but if I remember right, it was originally meant to be a Saw movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they turned it into something else. That's what this feels like. It feels like something that was written to be something else, and they're like, well, let's just call it Saw and make it a revival of that franchise.
which would make a lot of sense, except for the whole thing was bounded about by Chris Rock wrote this, and that's why it seems so weird. It's like this was written specifically by Saw and purposely, because why, unless he was a really big fan of Saw, why would he write this movie?
We don't know that for sure. We know that it was his idea.
Mm-hmm.
He may have written a movie about a cop investigating a series of cop murders.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
May not have written it to be a Saw movie.
But didn't he speak to saying that he was the reason he was doing it because he was such a big fan of Saw? I mean, I guess that could be, just hyping the movie, but
that could be him on the marketing trail.
Yeah.
I don't know. But to me, whether it's true or not, whatever his motivation was, it doesn't change the fact that this didn't feel like a Saw movie to me.
Nope.
I imagine it didn't feel like a Saw movie to a lot of people who went to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, reviews are about what you'd expect for a Saw movie. Yeah.
And Saw fans are pretty diehard fans. Like Angela, my wife, loves Saw. Like I've liked Saw. I've always liked it. Of all the torture porn movies, it's the one I like the most, and the one I can take the most. Even though I've been a lifelong horror geek and gore hound and all that stuff, the torture porn just was I couldn't do it. Like when you get to Hostel, I couldn't get through it. But Saw, for some reason, I was able to get through. But my wife, she's a diehard fan of it. People love it, really love it, and we're probably already seeing the blowback of saying it's one thing and feeling like another.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be enough to revive the franchise for long term or not.
No.
I don't think so. You think this is it? You think this is the only one? Like, I mean, I don't think. Well, look, let's be honest. No franchise is ever dead anymore.
That's true. Yeah.
So even if we say, "Oh, this is not going to continue," it'll be brought back in a few years, regardless.
This won't be the start of a new series of Saw movies. I will say that it's not going to kill the franchise. Eventually, it'll come back because it's just too simple and of an execution and too guaranteed of a box office. Any horror movie released at the right time on the right weekend every year is gonna make its money back because they're cheap to make. I mean, that's the whole Blumhouse effect thing, right? That's their whole way they make money. So it won't die, but this is not going to be the start of a new franchise for them. I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so either. On Xbox Live. Stop it. Sorry, distracted.
Oh, you're good.
What's our Woman in the Window? Please tell me you watched it.
Yeah, it's Amy Adams. Of course, I watched it.
You didn't. Yeah, okay, but you didn't get good Amy Adams in this.
No, I didn't know that going into it though, because I'm an idiot. I didn't.
You didn't get good looking Amy Adams, and you didn't get good acting.
No. Yeah.
Had.
I mean, I was only cared about the looking part, but yeah, the acting wasn't great either. And she's usually really, really solid, so that was surprising.
Yeah, this movie was trash. This Woman in the Window should have come out 2 years ago. It's a movie that has had a lot of problems. If you recall, the first trailer came out, I think, in 2019, and the reaction to it was so bad, and the test screenings were so bad that they took it back for reshoots. Directed by Joe Wright, who, as I said in my review, is the epitome of a 50-50 director because he'll give you some good shit like Hannah or Atonement, and then he'll give you some what the hell is this guy on shit like Pan. So he's not a consistent filmmaker. This is him on the ass end of that equation.
Right.
So yeah, this movie's had a lot of problems. I also believe that the source material is probably shit.
Let me stop you there for 1 second because this is what blew my mind. Is like before I saw, you'd see Amy Adams to star in Woman in the Window adaptation of best-selling novel, and I finally looked at the plot line. I'm like, that's an adaptation of Hitchcock's Rear Window. I mean, that's essentially what. I mean, it's more complex. There's more to it, but at the base, somebody's watching something else they don't understand and think something bad happened.
It is one of a million movies that take its premise from Rear Window. Now, remember the guy who wrote the book, A.J. Finn. His real name is Dan Mallory, and he went through a whole scandal for being somebody who lied about every aspect of his life. So he's one of those guys. So take that with what you will. But yeah, so it's basically the Rear Window plot. Amy Adams plays an agoraphobic therapist, which
let's not even dwell on that.
Right there, we like who would be her client? But
She's like the barber with a bad haircut, man.
right. So she lives in this Harlem brownstone. She's got Wyatt Russell, Captain America himself, John Walker, living in her downstairs flat.
Hmm.
Her ex-husband is Anthony Mackie, so you got a Falcon and the Winter Soldier thing going on here. If only. Too bad it's not. She witnesses a murder of her new neighbors across the street. One of her neighbors across the street. But when she tries to report it, nobody believes her because there's another woman who claims to be the one who was killed, and she's a totally different person,
Hmm.
played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, who basically does nothing in this movie. So yeah, and this whole thing is just an absolute mess. There are characters kind of traipsing in and out of her house, which is just weird, considering her affliction.
Yeah.
Uh, there's it has no drama to it. I think the thing that irked me most about it was that you had all these stars in it because Gary Oldman is in it as the menacing patriarch from across the street.
Hmm.
He's strangely dull. And this is fucking Gary Oldman playing menacing. I'm thinking the professional. He should be something. He should be
Yeah.
scary. He's not scary. He's boring. You got Julianne Moore, who's over the top. You got Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's silent. You got Wyatt Russell, who I don't think he knows what his character is supposed to be. And you've got Amy Adams, who is giving you nothing about this woman except she's hysterical. And I'm like, all of this is garbage as I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I'm like, all of this is garbage. And I don't know, and I don't care about any of it. Like, I don't care if she gets murdered in her sleep right now. I just don't care.
Here's the big problem when you talk about the difference between theatrical and streaming. It is so much easier to walk out of a streaming movie halfway through. So it takes a lot more willpower to finish watching it. If you're in a theater, everybody's gonna see you. Especially when we go to screenings, we're supposed to be professional and watch the whole thing. It was just really, really boring, and for something that and that's why I brought up the Rear Window piece, because Rear Window is the archetype for restrained suspense. Like, you never really see anything, and it's all what ifs, but it holds you on the edge of your seat, wondering every time.
And let's be clear. The reason why this movie sucks isn't because it's a riff on Rear Window.
Oh yeah, no.
There have been really good riffs on Rear Window, a lot of them, including Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. That's a riff on Rear Window. But the thing is, this one references Rear Window all the time.
Hmm.
In fact, it shows it explicitly on the TV screen at one point too. And all it did for me was make me say, "I've got Rear Window right there on my shelf. I should just go watch it."
Yeah. I mean,
that's better than this.
that's where the real problem is, because if you're doing an adaptation of one of the most borrowed from films of all time, yeah, go for it. Just do it right. But if you take this particular story, which is one of the easiest to adapt and do right, like you mentioned, Disturbia, there's been 100 of them. That '70s show did a Rear Window episode that was more suspenseful than this movie.
Yeah, this movie is. And let's continue talking about what some of the issues it had gone through. It was a 20th Century Fox movie, so
Hmm.
it kind of got swept up in the whole Disney acquisition thing for a while,
Right.
which delayed it further. And then, of course, the pandemic delayed it even more than that. But the movie was obviously not good from the start, hence all the reshoots. They brought in Tony Gilroy, the guy who came in to save Rogue One. They
Hmm.
brought him in to try to save this as well. Obviously, that didn't work out. Oh yeah, and speaking of which, the script for this was by Tracy Letts, an acclaimed playwright, acclaimed actor. He has a role in this movie too,
Hmm.
and he looks like somebody shot his dog, like right before filming started. It looks like his scenes were shot after Tony Gilroy came in and like hacked up his script or something.
Right.
That it looks like he has that look on his face, like, why am I acting for this movie that ain't even really mine anymore? That's the kind of attitude he seems to have in the movie, and it's not intentional. It's just you can feel it.
Yeah.
And it's just everything about this is wrong. Like everything about it is bad. It's just, and then okay, not everything's bad. I actually think the cinematography is really good. Like they make her home
Hmm.
really kind of look lively. I think for a movie that essentially takes place in one spot, location isn't boring.
Yeah.
It very well could have been, especially when you're talking about a page description screen adaptation that can happen.
Right.
I think that's the one thing it gets right. Like it stays pretty lively in terms of that aspect of it, in terms of the way it looks. But everything else is trash. This movie's bad. It almost reminds me, I mean, of like The Girl on the Train, which had similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
Another adult thriller based on a best-selling book with a star-studded cast that was just flat. Just
Yeah.
super flat. None of them have been able to match Gone Girl. None of them have. And they're trying, but none of them seem to be able to capture what that book to screen adaptation was able to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that movie still disturbs me. And I was a big fan of Rosamund Pike, but prior to that, and I don't think I could ever look at her the same since. But so Amy Adams was really big in the 2000s. You knew who else was huge in the 2000s? Angelina Jolie. That's who. Yes, she was. And she has a new movie out that's kind of like a mix of all the different sections of her career, where it's a little bit actiony, a little bit drama-y. And all I could think of the whole time I was watching this was that story arc from Entourage, whether or not this was that movie. You remember the bidding war for smoke jumpers?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because Entourage is a movie that is a show that has not entered my brain since it ended.
Me neither. And I loved
like that movie, like that show and that movie, which I still can't believe. Of all the HBO shows that people have demanded to become movies, the one that gets it, other than Sex and the City, is freaking Entourage.
I mean, it's got to be the budget, right? I mean, it doesn't cost much to get those guys to walk around LA, but yeah, that is funny when you think about it. But yeah,
that is you know, in my review, I called it an old-fashioned star vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I called it that on Around Town as well. It feels like a movie from the 90s to early 2000s, the kind of movie that will always be fronted by a big star, and it was the big star that would draw you to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of, I used Dante's Peak as my example. It's not just because of the Fall of Fire aspect. It's because that movie was fronted by Pierce Brosnan.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why people really turned out for it. But they made 1 million of those movies that were successful back in the day, and this feels like that. But also, like a lot of those movies, Those Who Wish Me Dead is very forgettable. Like almost all those movies were too. She plays a firefighter in Montana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right in the middle of Montana wildfires.
Yep. Of course, she has a tragic past, a fire that goes out of control. She runs across a boy who has witnessed a murder, and he's got killers on his trail who want to silence him, and she is the one who makes it her mission to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is essentially the entire movie. It's her protecting this boy. Now, look, just because I said it's old-fashioned star vehicle and that it's forgettable, it doesn't mean it's bad. I think it's perfectly entertaining for the hour and a half that it gives you.
Yeah.
The fact that it is an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes is probably exactly right for this kind of movie. There's not a whole lot to it other than Angelina Jolie.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have is that it was written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who was a guy that I normally love. He wrote Hell or High Water. He wrote Sicario. You know, he wrote and directed Wind River. He does Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like ever since he started Yellowstone, which was in 2018, and it's about 2018 when this problem started happening, he's been phoning it in on the big screen. And I feel like this movie, it just does not have a lot of meat on the bone compared to the other stuff that he does. And I would put Without Remorse in that category too, because he wrote that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a perfectly fine movie too, but there's not a lot of meat on the bone to it either. In terms of the movie, as other movies that he's done that are really complex and layered and have social commentary and all sorts of stuff going on with them, and as well, and on top of muscular action.
Right.
This movie doesn't really have it. Without Remorse didn't really have it. It seems like he's just kind of not bringing that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. It's a 90s movie. And there's a certain charm to 90s movies that knew what they were. Con Air was never trying to give you a treatise on the mind of a criminal and the trauma they went through. It knew what it was doing, and it went through it. It does seem a little jarring now because so much importance has been put on that for any movie that comes out, and it is I never understand Angelina Jolie's career choices. Like after 2009, 2010, she seemed like she only wanted to do serious movies, and she'd start doing those serious independent, talk about wars in Syria and things like this, and then she popped up in this, and I just because of her presence, I assumed this was going to be some kind of statement on, the environment or something like that because of the wildfire aspect. But it's just her back being an action star, and she's always been very good at that. I will say, we've heard a lot about wildfires in the last few years. Australia, LA seems to always be on fire, and to me, they never were that terrifying in my mind because I'm like, well, just don't go near the fire. But then you see the hell on earth that's created in this, and I thought they did a really good job creating that atmosphere and showing what it would be like to be inside those fires. And I have a little bit more respect for them now, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I find it funny that you're just like, just don't go near the fire. If that's enough.
Yeah,
Like,
just don't go.
Fire doesn't spread and go everywhere and ruin millions of people.
Yeah, I mean
just don't go near it.
the truth is, it's even more terrifying because it's so slow. Because it's like your house, your livelihood, everything you've built over the last 20 years is there, and you're just watching this fire slowly saunter up. I'm gonna get you, Oh man.
Yeah, no, they did a really good job with capturing the chaos of being in a wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, and this is me, and a lot of this comes from a conversation I had with my friend Karen last night. We were talking about the movie, so I'm going to credit some of this to her, although it was both of us talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the wildfire aspect of it, while yes, a lot of it is as terrifying as you think it should be,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really factor into the movie that much. And also. There's a part of the movie, and I'm going to spoil some of this movie for anybody who hasn't seen Those Who Wish Me Dead. So I'm sorry, but so at the end of the wildfire scene, like they just kind of just dive into a river and just kind of poke their head out, and the whole thing's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not how it works. It doesn't just go away.
No,
it doesn't just go away. But that's kind of what just happened, and it felt like they were trying to hurry up and get to the end. Now, if they had, because she has an entire team of firefighters she works with, that they had really introduced quite well in the beginning of the movie with her.
Mm-hmm.
If they had them come in and put the fire out, like they pull themselves out of the river, and her friends are there fighting the fire, and that's how they get away. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. This was just, oh yeah, we just pulled our head out of the water and whew.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what the presence of Angelina Jolie does. I mean, because essentially it's
just the power of Jolie that she can make a wildfire.
No. It's her presence that makes you think they should explain that. Because like in San Andreas, you never expected them to explain how the city was fixed after The Rock saved his daughter from the earthquakes. But Angelina Jolie's presence in the movie makes you think there's going to be a bit more logic to it. But yeah, it really did.
This isn't a dumb movie like that.
No, it's not dumb like that.
This is a dumb movie. This is a serious movie. So I expect them to play it straight.
Yeah.
San Andreas, I didn't expect it. No.
Okay, that might be a bad comparison, but it really did feel like the writer's room shut down a week earlier or something like that. They were like, okay, we got the primary, storyline wrapped. You guys want to just call it a day? They pop up, it's done. It seemed like there could at least been like a 30-second montage of fighting the fire or something like that.
Give me something. What do you think of Aidan Gillen and Nicholas Hoult as the bad guys who are on their trail?
Nicholas Hoult, I was really surprised. Aidan Gillen, I kind of expected him to be a bad guy, but I don't think he went full for it. He almost seemed like he wasn't all the way there. Like the badness I've seen him portray, I didn't see in this movie. But Nicholas Hoult, who usually plays the other side of the racket, I'm making tennis comparisons now. He was actually surprisingly effective as a villain, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, they were for like the first 45 minutes of the movie. They were quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turned into goobers.
Two
badasses who are killing people all throughout the first half of the movie. and then they can't. They both soundly defeated by a pregnant woman who can't run, can't fight. Then it's like, like what happened? Like every time, all of a sudden, they can't do anything right. And it was like, okay, all right,
Well, that's for me. That lended into the whole how did the fire get put out deal. It's like, I'm just tired of writing this movie. Let's just they suck now. Let's call it that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're not that. I don't think you're that far off. I do feel like there is a certain amount of laziness that went into this script because it is such a old-fashioned star vehicle. They're just like look, I adore Dante's Peak. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's one of the most watchable movies ever. In fact, two of the most watchable movies ever for me are both Pierce Brosnan movies, that and Thomas Crown Affair. Both have ridiculous parts to them that I'm like, yeah, y'all just kind of like skated through that one a little bit.
Yeah.
But especially Dante's Peak, and this one feels like that. Like the writers are just like, wait a minute, this part don't make sense. You think it really
does it need to?
No, is it really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
It's gonna be on HBO Max anyway.
Yeah.
So like,
That's
no one's gonna pay to see it in a theater. Which isn't true.
You know what? You might be onto something there, like because of the production of this. When they announced everything was going to HBO Max, would have been right around when they started doing reshoots on a movie like this. So maybe they're like, "Hey, you guys, we forgot to put out the fucking fire," and they're like, "We're going to HBO Max, man. They're not gonna give us more money. Screw it. Just it's out. Just call it a day."
So yeah, but like I said, it's still entertaining. It's an entertaining movie. I just don't think.
Movies don't have to make sense to be good, and they don't even have to have good writing to be enjoyable. I've seen some pretty movies with some pretty bad scripts and some pretty huge gaps in logic that were just so much fun to watch.
Because the title of the movie does not fit with the story of the movie at all. Like if I told you this movie's called Those Who Wish Me Dead, you'd be like, why is it called that?
Yeah.
Because those things don't really relate. In 3 or 4 months, when I go through my list of movies and I'm trying to think of like just trying to recount everything that I've seen, I'm gonna see Those Who Wish Me Dead, and I'm gonna be like, which movie was that?
Yep. Yeah. They should just called it Smoke Jumpers and called it a day.
Something. They should have called it something, something not this. And I'm gonna have to go in Wikipedia and look it up. And be reminded that it was, oh yeah, that's the Angelina Jolie movie, Firefighter movie.
Right. All right, we got one more piece of news. I know we're over the hour now, but let's just chat real quick about what else? No, okay, I skipped over there. Knives Out 2, which is Knives Out was a big surprise for a lot of people. I mean, we've always been Rian Johnson fans here, so I don't think we were as surprised.
It were the good old days of being Rian Johnson fans when we talk about Brick and Brother Boom, which I think is the movie I've seen the most in theaters in my life.
Yeah. Oh, those were the good old days.
I think it's tied with Rogue One. I think I've seen them both. I paid to see both 5 times.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, Knives Out, I was surprised. You know, murder mystery movies aren't known for their rewatch value, but I have watched the performances, the writing, the whole shebang of Knives Out is so good. Plus Ana de Armas. I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times at this point. One question I have for you, because you're
for Ana de Armas in what was that movie with her and Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum? Or not? Is it Channing Tatum? Not Channing Tatum. Wild
Hogs?
No, the one where they're arms dealers.
Oh, Wild Dogs. Yeah. Which I do not remember her. I don't remember her until Blade Runner. I thought that was like her premiere, and I didn't even really know her as her then.
No, I think Knock Knock was her big breakout movie.
Yeah, I thought that was around the same time though.
Yeah, it was Knock Knock, and then War Dogs. Yeah, War Dogs. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep. Knock Knock, and then War Dogs. War Dogs was only
Knock
4 years ago.
Stunning, and she's crazy gorgeous
Oh yeah.
in War Dogs.
Yeah, and I could have sworn War Dogs was more like 10 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. But
Salt was in 2010.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, Salt feels like it might have been 5 years ago. War Dogs feels like it was 10. I just have no concept of time anymore, and it's scary. But long story short, Knives Out is not the movie you'd expect it to be. Totally rewatchable. It is absolutely rewatchable. We know that we're getting a sequel to Knives Out. We know that it's going to follow Daniel Craig. and I always forget his name. What's the detective's character's name?
Benoit Blanc.
Benoit Blanc, which is
Going to be on Netflix. The next 2 sequels going to be on Netflix.
which has got to be one of the coolest detective names of all time. And I really liked Craig's character, but I really feel like the core to that movie, what made that movie so good was not Benoit Blanc, but everybody around it. Like, he contributed for sure, but I'm really wondering about Knives Out too, because they're not gonna have the same cast back, and that's why it's good what we found out this week. Lots of new people joining this new movie.
And just they put together so far.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Dave Bautista was the first person to sign up for it.
Right.
Ed Norton,
Mm-hmm.
Janelle Monáe, and Catherine Hahn. Those are the first 4 people who signed up for Knives Out 2. So that's already a hell of an ensemble.
And it gives me so much hope for the script, because if you land Catherine Hahn right now, what that tells me, coming off WandaVision, she's about as hot as she's ever been, maybe as hot as she'll ever be when it comes to casting, and she would have had her choice of anything, but she picked this. So that tells me, and she's got a smart eye for what to choose. So that means whatever script is in place, not that I was doubting Johnson, but whatever script is in place is going to be good.
I think for the most part, everybody that's in it is pretty choosy. Edward Norton doesn't make very many movies. He really is choosy with the movies he picks.
Yeah.
Janelle Monáe doesn't take a lot of movies either.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a whole other career.
Yeah.
that she has going on. She doesn't take us in the movies either. And Batista, I think he's as hot as he's ever been right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because it's not because of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Which he's been, talking about how much he can't wait to get out of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's how you know he's in it for the long run, because he had the star-making role, but he immediately showed the world he was way more than that. And we obviously were talking about him earlier with Army of the Dead, but that's The Rock has more charisma, but Bautista is far and away ahead of The Rock when it comes to actual drama and actual empathy and feeling, because he's a gigantic man that you just feel like would give you a hug if you were sad. There's something about him that gives him so much more heart than everybody else, and that's why he's going to be around a lot longer.
I feel, as much as I like Dwayne Johnson, and I do, I feel like no matter what role he takes,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's always conscious of his image.
Yeah.
Every single role he takes, like, no matter what. Whereas I think Bautista is a little bit more open.
Yeah, like, he's not going to play the bad guy again for a long time. He's not going to do something that makes him look bad, unless it's something like what Central Intelligence or whatever that was, where he's wearing a fat suit. Unless it's something where he's like, "Hey, look, I'm poking fun of myself." Yeah.
I think the types of roles are going to be taken a lot broader.
Mm-hmm.
I think John Cena is somewhere. Like, those are the top 3.
I love John Cena too. I mean, I'm amazed by the acting talent that's come out of wrestling in the past 20 years, because it might only be 3 or 4 people, 5 or 6 if you go to like B-level movies, but when you consider that we grew up with guys like the Iron Sheik and Hulk Hogan was the best actor of his generation. And if you've ever seen Tropic Thunder or Mr. Nanny, you'll know why that's impressive to me.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan was not a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Bautista, he can't. I mean, that was the other news story we were going to do, and we really don't have time anymore. But he's really been talking about how this is the end of the line for him and for Guardians of the Galaxy. That's it. He's not going to be playing Drax anymore. Marvel dropped the ball with Drax, which I think is true to a certain extent. He's really ready to get out of that and move on to other things. And as we saw with Army of the Dead, and now Knives Out 2, he's going to have plenty of options.
Yeah, I mean, there's
been talking about how he wants to play Bane someday. He'll get that chance if he wants to. He'll get that shot. I mean, they'll come up with a way for him to play Bane.
Oh yeah, especially if he keeps getting hotter and hotter like this. I mean, look, Drax is a great character, but he's a side character. I mean, he's got a cool backstory, but it's not deep, and it's not something you can really explore. Yeah, he's pissed off that his family was killed, and he wants revenge. I mean, I'm not saying he's one note. He's not, but he's also not somebody you're going to base a solo film on. So I think the best thing for him to do is just to take what he's gained from playing Drax and move it in somewhere else, because he's obviously not limited to just that character.
Yeah, he can clearly do a lot more. and
Mm-hmm.
I'm anxious to see him do more. I thought he was really great in My Spy.
Mm-hmm.
That was much better than it had any business being. And
Yeah.
part of the reason is because of him. And I really can't stress enough that people should go and check out Bushwick if you can find it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's online somewhere. You can find it. It's an action movie, but it's got dramatic elements to it. It's him and Brittany Snow.
Oh, I love Brittany Snow.
Like that. Yeah, I know you'll like that. I do too. Trust me.
The only reason to watch not John Carter. What was it? Oh, what was that movie? I don't know.
I know the movie you're thinking, the high school
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. It's like Don't Date Johnny
Yeah.
Thunder or something like that.
Yeah, something. I know.
Bushwick. Bushwick is available. So this is a cool thing. I'm kind of glad this came up. Hoopla. Have you heard of the streaming service Hoopla?
I have not.
So I don't know if you may have been more classy than this, but when I was younger, like the library was a good place to go and rent movies, but not the new stuff, but the movie stuff. And I was always like, that sucks that you can't really do that anymore. Hoopla lets that happen. If you have a local library card, you can go to Hoopla and they have all kinds of good movies and stuff like that. And that's where you can find Bushwick for totally free.
Okay. Yeah. I would love for you to watch that and let me know what you
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm always interested to hear what people think of it because I thought it was a movie that was kind of ahead of its time a little bit.
Mm.
Was that Sundance that I saw it? I think it might have been. It might have been at Sundance. Jesus.
I remember you talking about it. I don't remember what time of year was it, though.
I think me and Chris Blumberry were like the only two people who wanted to review the damn thing. He didn't like it. I was the only one who liked it. So I don't know. Maybe other people don't feel the same way that I do about it. And I really enjoyed it and really thought it was a good role for him.
Right on.
Worth checking out. All
Cool.
Right. We're way past time.
Yes, we are. So with that being said, we've got. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff coming out next week. Any idea off the top of your head?
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
I watched one of them last night, so I know there's one. Seance is a horror movie that comes out next week. I know.
Yeah.
So that's one. Dream Force with Toni Collette comes out next week. I don't know if many super big things come out next week. I think the next big movie is A Quiet Place 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, you can check punchdrunkcritics.com, www.punchdrunkcritics.com every day to get a behind-the-scenes look at what news we'll probably be talking about next week. That's for sure. On Twitter, the site is at PDC Movies. Travis is at Punchy Critic, and I am at PunchDrunkJohn. On Twitch, make sure you follow Travis's account at cinematic_enforcer, at cinematic_enforcer.
I will get my Twitch stream up at some point soon.
He will do that. And it'll happen. So make sure you subscribe so you get the alert when it does happen. Any tips, questions, if you ever wanted to try your hand at writing movie reviews, if you're a big fan of movies, just want to write about the news or any kind of original content, shoot us a message, info@punchdrunkcritics.com. We're always looking for new and interesting voices to add to the site. And then if you have any tips about new movies or anything like that, you just want to talk, shoot us an email at info@punchdrunkcritics.com. Until next week, folks, I'm John.
Travis.
We're out of here.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.